Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm just going to record a short lesson, another topic from finding slope, but this time from a table. So watch the video, pay attention, take notes, and then I'll leave a few problems for you to solve on your own. And when I come in tomorrow, we can review it and you can ask your questions. So far, we've learned how to find slope of a line if we're giving the graph, and slope of a line if you have only the points but no graph. Well, today we're going to learn how to find the slope of a line if we're giving the table of values, right? So we don't have a graph and we have a table as opposed to 2 points. There are two methods when we are finding slope of a linear function, because line is actually a linear function, right? It's the short way of saying linear function. The first way is to identify the pattern. And we already kind of did that when we were deciding if a function is linear, exponential, or quadratic. However, when we were doing this, if you remember, x always changed by 1. Y was a different number, 2, 3, 4, -1, but x always went up by 1. So sometimes that's not going to happen, and I'm going to give you an example here. So remember the slope formula. We had slope equals rise over run. That's the one we used when we had a graph. We also learned the slope formula. But if you remember from your notes the other day, that basically also means change in y divided by the change in x. And a short way to write this in math is change was the Greek letter delta, which looks like a little triangle, over the change in x. Okay, so this is the formula we'll be using today when we are identifying pattern. That's the first way to find a slope of a linear function when you have a table. Okay, so let's look at that table in the example here. So I'm working on this example over here. We have the table of values. X is the first one, Y is the second one. What I'm going to do now is I am going to try to decide what happened to the X and what happened to the Y values. So from -2 to -1, I added 1. I went up 1, right? From -1 to 0, I again added 1. From 0 to 1, I added 1. From 1 to 2, I added 1. I noticed that this doesn't change, right? Okay. Now, what happened to the Y values? From -8 to -3, well, how can you find out this on the calculator? Like if it doesn't come to you right away, how can you decide how many units did they go up or down? Well, -8 is lower than -3. That means I went up, right? Up 5 units, so that means +5. An easy way to find it using your calculators, and you can ask your substitute teacher or Miss Bayan if she's in the room, depending on which class you are in, to give you the calculators. Use your phones if they're not available. How can I find that +5, that change with the calculator? Well, I'm going to look at the second number, the lower number, -3, and I'm going to subtract the first number, -8. So you can put it in parentheses, and it's going to give you 5. That means the change was +5. That's how you can find it with the calculator. Okay. So then from -3 to 2, again, if I'm using the calculator, I'm going to start with the lower number, 2, minus the higher number, -3, the one that's above, not that it's a bigger number. It's again 5. So +5. From 2 to 7, now these are easy because they're positives. I went up 5. And from 7 to 2, I went up 5. So by the looks of it, because I was adding or subtracting a number, I already am sure this is a linear function. Remember, when we are adding the same number, it's a linear function. When we are multiplying, it's exponential. And quadratic function was when the second difference is the same. So the first row is different, but the second is the same. Here, I already got the same number right away, so this is a linear function. Okay. I'm going to now find the slope. Well, the slope, and I'm applying this formula over here. Again, this is what I'm looking at. The slope equals the change in y divided by the change in x. Well, what is the change in y? It's that number here, positive 5, positive 5, positive 5. It's repeating number. So the change in y is always positive 5. And what was the change in x? It happened to be positive 1. Well, 5 divided by 1 is 5. So the slope of that table is going to be 5. That's one way to find slope. Now, quickly, I'm going to show you the second way. The second way is to use the slope formula. Now, how can I use the slope formula? So let's say I forgot about the pattern. I forgot how to find change in y and change in x. I can utilize the slope formula we learned the other day. So the slope formula is y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Well, which one is y1 and which one is y2? You can pick it, right? It's 2 points that you select from the table. So I'm going to erase this a little bit. So I'm working with absolutely the same table, but this time I'm using the slope formula, and it's going to be in green. Okay, so I'm looking at the table. This is 1 point, right? Like the way we're looking at it, x and y. This basically means -2, -8. This means if I put it in ordered pair form, -1, -3, this translates to 0, 2, this translates to 1, 7, and this translates to 2, 12. So how many points do I have? I have 5 points. For the slope formula, I need 2. So I pick any 2 I want. It really, there's no rule which ones to pick. I will pick any 2. Now, the tricky part is I don't like working with negative numbers. They're a little tricky and could cause me to make a mistake. So I'm going to pick the points that have only positive numbers. So let's say I'm going to pick this point and this point. So my 2 points are 1, 7 and 2, 12. Once I pick my points, then I'm already done. I can use the slope formula as well. Remember, the first step is to label them. This is x1, y1. This is going to be x2, y2. And then I'm going to plug these values in the slope formula. So instead of y1, I'm going to erase y1. Oops, sorry. I didn't mean to erase the minus. I erase y1. Y1 is over here, and it is 7. So I'm going to write down 7. Y2 is 12, so I'm going to, okay. X1 is this over here, corresponds to 1. So I'm going to erase X1, and I'm going to plug in 1 for it. And then X2 is going to be 2. And then I'm going to make my calculation. 7 minus 12 is -5. 1 minus 2 is -1. -5 divided by -1, the slope is going to be +5. Absolutely the same, because it's the same line, but it's another way to get it. Okay? Hope that helps. I will post this video, and then I'll leave you some work to do. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.